Ladies and gentlemen, how do?
Hello, all you lovely people. Today I am bringing you a video by a group claiming to be anonymous, but regardless of whether they are the real group or not, the video has some very legitimate questions regarding the Big Balls incident. You may recall that he got beaten up by a 15-year-old girl and reportedly 9 other wild youths in what was reported to be a carjacking incident in a very affluent part of Washington, D.C. Big Balls incident sparked off a massive so-called law and order crackdown in D.C. by the Commander-in-Chief, who used the incident, which looked very sus from the beginning, to bring in the National Guard and federalize the D.C. police under the pretense that there is a crime epidemic in D.C. when the exact opposite is true, as crime figures are at a historic low. Anyway, that is enough of me wittering on. Here is the possible anonymous video. Let me know in the comments if you, too, think that the Big Balls incident was another massive scam by the Commander-in-Chief. Look out for my videos on a little history of his scams. The first one drops tomorrow.
We are anonymous. You may know us as the faceless, voiceless collective that thrives in the shadows, peeling back layers of lies and deception, shining a harsh light where others are too afraid or too compromised to look. We don't take sides with politicians. We take sides with the truth. And today, the truth hides beneath a strange, almost absurd sequence of events the media has branded the Big Balls incident. The question isn't just whether it happened the way they say it did. The real question is, was the chaos orchestrated? And if it was, who benefits from it? And why does it all seem to lead directly to Donald Trump's next big move? Let's rewind and start with the man at the center of this story, Edward Korestein. If you've followed certain political fringes online, you might know him better by his nickname, Big Balls. 19 years old, formerly attached to Elon Musk's experimental department of government efficiency, DOGE for short, a so-called wunderkind, who despite his age had already held short-term roles in agencies like USAID, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, TSA, and had even been assigned to projects like gold cards. His latest posting, working for the Social Security Administration, on their website. Yes, from flashy Musk experiments to the mundane bureaucratic trenches. On the surface, his resume looks like a curious mix of stunt appointments and digital busy work. But his proximity to figures like Musk, and by extension to political insiders loyal to Trump, positioned him in an interesting space, a space where chaos could be turned into currency. Now here's where the story takes its turn. According to police reports out of Washington, D.C., in the early hours of the morning around 3:00 a.m., Korestein was allegedly attacked in DuPont Circle by a group of about 10 teenagers. The narrative says he was attempting to stop a carjacking, stepping in heroically to protect someone in danger. 2 suspects, both aged 15, were arrested shortly afterward, and conveniently an iPhone 16 worth about $1,000 was reported stolen. The official police line paints Korestein as an unexpected Good Samaritan blindsided by urban violence. But what happened next was far more revealing than the attack itself. Photos started circulating online, graphic images of Korestein shirtless, blood smeared across his face and torso. The shots were taken by a friend, Marco Elez, who just happened to be there to capture the aftermath. And these weren't photos hidden in private chats. They were broadcast to the world, posted by none other than Donald Trump on his own social media platform, Truth Social. The former, and now once again president, used those bloody images as a prop to call for harsher laws, urging that juvenile suspects be tried as adults. A clear political statement wrapped around a violent urban crime story. And then Elon Musk weighed in. On X, he claimed that a group of about a dozen youths attempted to assault a woman in her car, and Korestein jumped in to save her, sustaining a traumatic brain injury in the process, but saving her life. Hero narrative ready-made, conveniently tidy, no shades of gray. Just an innocent man defending a woman and a city too dangerous for its own good. Here's where Anonymous raises its first red flag. Where's the surveillance footage? This is DuPont Circle, Washington, D.C. is riddled with cameras. You can hardly step outside without being picked up by a dozen lenses. Yet somehow there is no public video of this alleged assault. We have still photos after the fact. We have a narrative that's been repeated by Trump and Musk. But we don't have raw, verifiable evidence of the moment itself. That's not impossible, but it's unlikely. Now let's look at the timing. Within hours of the story hitting the public, Trump issued an order sending additional federal law enforcement into D.C., framing it as a necessary response to a supposed spike in violent crime. But the data doesn't support that claim violent crime in the district is actually at a 30-year low. And that's the second red flag. The reality on the ground doesn't match the urgency of the federal action, unless the real urgency isn't about crime at all, but about political theater. Consider how Trump thrives politically. He works best when there's a crisis, real or manufactured, that allows him to step into the role of law and order savior. The Big Balls story is tailor-made for this persona. It's visceral, it's visual, it has a sympathetic protagonist linked to Trump's own orbit, and it's easily framed too as an indictment of liberal city mismanagement and soft on crime policies. Anonymous suspects that whether or not the attack happened exactly as described, it was quickly repurposed or even staged to serve a political goal. In this case, the goal might be twofold: to justify a heavy-handed federal presence in D.C. and to reignite Trump's broader law and order narrative heading into whatever his next big move is. The reaction from Fox News only reinforces this. Their coverage leaned heavily into martyrdom imagery, turning Corristine into a symbol of conservative victimhood, a young patriot beaten down in the liberal heart of the Capitol. It's the kind of framing that stirs outrage among the base and builds emotional momentum for whatever policy push comes next. But here's where the story splinters into even stranger territory. Parallel to the Big Balls spectacle, Trump's allies in media are promoting voices like Pete Hegseth, who, in a separate but thematically linked controversy, posted a CNN interview with Pastor Doug Wilson. Wilson is not shy about his views opposing women's suffrage, supporting the criminalization of gay sex, defending certain aspects of slavery, and openly advocating for a future Christian theocracy. Hegseth shared this without condemnation, implicitly endorsing it, and when asked for comment, a Pentagon spokesperson confirmed that Hegseth, in his role as defense secretary, very much appreciates Wilson's writings and teachings. Why mention this in the same breath as the Big Balls incident? Because it paints a picture of the ideological ecosystem we're dealing with. This isn't just about one street-level assault. It's about the kind of America these players are trying to create. An America governed by fear, dominated by a narrow religious vision, and policed with authoritarian fervor. The chaos on the street becomes the justification for the crackdown, and the crackdown becomes the tool for reshaping the country. And there's more. In the background of all this domestic theater is an international subplot. Reports that Vladimir Putin is set to visit Alaska for a summit with Trump on August 15th. No other Western leader has hosted Putin since the war in Ukraine began. The symbolism is staggering. A pariah leader welcomed onto U.S. soil, potentially to negotiate the handover of parts of Ukraine. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton has already called this a great victory for Putin and compared it to the disastrous optics of inviting the Taliban to Camp David.
You were in the room in 2018 in Helsinki when this happened. What do you make of the fact that Putin has now been invited to Alaska?
Well, it's very gracious of Putin to come to former Russian America for this summit. This is not quite as bad as Trump inviting the Taliban to Camp David to talk about the peace negotiations in Afghanistan, but it certainly reminds one of that. The only better place for Putin than Alaska would be if the summit were being held in Moscow. So the initial setup, I think, is a great victory for Putin. He's a rogue leader of a pariah state, and he's going to be welcomed into the United States. Second, I have a feeling this is sliding very quickly in Russia's direction.
When you step back and connect the dots, a pattern emerges. Domestically, you manufacture, or at least amplify, chaos. You use it to justify federal muscle, to stoke cultural fear, to present yourself as the only solution. Internationally, you cozy up to a foreign strongman in ways that undermine existing alliances and shift the balance of power. Together, these moves strengthen an authoritarian narrative and weaken democratic norms. So where does Anonymous stand? We're not here to tell you what to believe about whether Big Balls was genuinely attacked, whether it was staged, or whether the truth lies somewhere in between. We are here to tell you that the speed, the coordination, and the political mileage extracted from this event are too precise to ignore. We are here to remind you that powerful people have always understood the value of spectacle, and that in politics, nothing goes to waste. You have to ask yourself, why was there a photographer on hand to capture just the right images? Why did the story immediately get national coverage through Trump's own channels and Musk's social media megaphone? Why was there such a swift federal response to a single street crime in a city where crime is statistically down? Why does the narrative fit so neatly into Trump's political needs? If you think these are just coincidences, history will prove you naive. If you recognize the signs of manipulation, then you know what comes next. More fear, more control, more erosion of freedoms dressed up as public safety. Anonymous believes sunlight is the best disinfectant. That's why we're speaking on this while corporate media either won't touch it or will only skim the surface. They'll give you the sanitized version. We'll give you the raw edges, the parts that don't fit the inconsistencies they hope you won't notice. If you see what we see, if you understand how critical it is to question these narratives, then act. Share this message. Talk to people. Shine a light where they want shadows. The only way to defeat orchestrated chaos is with organized truth. The choice is yours.
Massive shout out to the lads over on ALLShorts AI for making my words come to life. Say hello to them. Well, folks, if you enjoyed this video, then not only are you lovely people, but you also have great taste, and you should also subscribe to the Two Davies for news and politics from a very Scottish perspective, and that rantastic Mr. McGinnis. You should also subscribe to Mr. Daily Blasé's channel for merriment, mischief, and the Friday frolics. Cue growling cat.